Picture this. You wake up in a hospital bed and your whole body is just screaming in pain. You were in a boxing match, a championship fight, and you were losing badly. The doctors are worried about you, and your coach and teacher wonder if you may ever fight again. The only question on your mind is, what happened? When the answer comes, you find out that you won. You are the greatest boxer in all of Japan. Your health? That's fine. The doctors can't find any serious or permanent injury. You're insanely talented and the future looks bright. Today, you're the best in Japan. Tomorrow, you may compete for a world title. You have everything you could reasonably ask for: fame, prestige, and companions who are happy to watch you succeed. So what do? Do you A. Rest, allowing your body to heal, or B. Celebrate with the people you love? Sawamura instead chose option C. He gets on his bike and drives recklessly down the highway, crashing into a truck. He ends his boxing career and nearly ends his life. On the surface, it looks like melodrama. Why would someone who has everything throw it all away for no apparent reason? But Morikawa has crafted a more complex, nuanced narrative. Perhaps Sawamura didn't sabotage himself despite his success, but because of it? Yeah, that's almost too dark to even think about, and that's what Morikawa is really good at. My name is Lucky7, and I'm here to explore how success broke Ryuhei Sawamura. To understand Sawamura, we need to go back to the beginning. As a child, he had a strong sense of justice. His dad was a raging alcoholic who physically abused his mother. When things went too far, he stabbed him. Imagine that, a prepubescent child forced to grow up and mature into this protector role under extreme stress. This kind of experience changes you. It has to. And his mother noticed it. Instead of being grateful that her son came to her aid, she saw him as a monster, terrified he may eventually turn the knife on her, and ran away, lying that she was looking for jobs and she'd someday return. She not only abandoned Ryuhei, but she gave him this false hope. Every single night, he'd stare out the window waiting for his mother until he finally understood the truth. His mother had betrayed him. Yet despite this, he didn't actually turn violent yet. His teacher, Kawabe, described him as having a repulsive aura. This kind of put people off of him. And honestly, that alone was enough to make people falsely blame him for the birds in his school being brutally beheaded. And just for context, Sawamura was not the kind of person to do this. He loved these birds and he fed them every day along with his teacher Kawabe. It was like their little ritual, they were trying to spend time together. They were likely killed as an act of bullying, with Sawamura being framed for the slaughter. Kawabe never stepped up for him because of school policy, whatever that means. And that's when Sawamura actually broke. It wasn't just one incident, it was a series of events where he carried other people's burdens, he tried to reach out, he tried to have this normal life, and he was consistently hurt and let down by the people he trusted. Every single time. His father brutalized his home, his mother abandoned him, his peers demonized and probably framed him, his teacher failed him. That's what makes it so horrifying. These weren't isolated traumas, they became his worldview. People don't care. People protect themselves. The strong survive and the weak get discarded. That was the rule he lived by. He built up his body, trusting solely in his fists to keep him safe. This is the version of Sawamura that Ippo meets in season 3. He watches one of his matches where Sawamura gets clipped by an accidental elbow. The ref immediately says, "No, don't apologize, you didn't mean it," with no regard for Sawamura's safety. And what do you think Sawamura does in this situation? He takes matters into his own hands. He grabs the dude by the face and stabs his elbow into his eye, making it explode with blood. Sawamura is the first and only man in Hajime no Ippo to literally maim his opponent in the ring. Not a hint of guilt on his face, by the way. From his perspective, why should there be any guilt? Why is it okay for people to hurt him and get away with it, yet he's the villain when he does it back? He says, "I was just giving him what he gave me." Same thing with Kumi. A lot of people frame him as like a monster for what he did. But think about it from his perspective. He only punches her because he thinks that she was vandalizing his bike. Ironically, Kumi was actually on Sawamura's side. She was trying to stop Mashiba from touching his bike, but Sawamura doesn't know that. He assumes malintent, punches first, and asks questions later. What's really sad about this is that Sawamura is so screwed up, he can't even understand why his actions were wrong. He doesn't see himself as being immoral. He sees himself as responding correctly to a world that already attacked him first. In fact, the whole concept of right and wrong barely means anything to him anymore. He tortures people inside and outside the ring because sadism is the only emotion he can reliably feel. Watch how expressionless he is in his interactions until he gets to hurt someone and then he lights up. And make no mistake, it is wrong what he's doing. Ippo confronts him with that in their fight. He is genuinely disgusted that someone as talented as Sawamura ever felt the need to cheat. To Ippo, he's like this bizarre creature he just can't understand, and he hates it. Sawamura has Ippo on the ropes, but he spends so long relishing the torture that Ippo catches him with a devastating Dempsey roll and knocks him out brutally. And supposedly this ends his reign of terror, or so we thought. All this experience really taught Sawamura is that he should be even more ruthless. This is where we see the bizarre trend of Sawamura failing upwards. It's like life was paying him back for all the trauma, and now he's blessed with impossible luck no matter how many bad choices he makes. After losing to Ippo, he goes up to junior lightweight, Mashiba's weight class, and quickly asserts himself as the top contender. He fights him with no apology for punching Kumi, by the way, and the insane part is, he does win the boxing. Mashiba doesn't cheat, he fights clean. Sawamura's the first to cheat, even though he didn't need to. Mashiba's rhythm was so predictable to him that he figures it out easily and starts landing devastating counters. He solves the fight and then sabotages it anyway. He knocks Mashiba down, kneeing him in the face. Why would you do that? But luckily, the ref didn't see and Mashiba was even more compromised. He dominates Mashiba, knocking him down again, and this time kicking him in the face with his boot. You were winning the fight, you idiot. Why would you do that? And this is when Mashiba awakens. He gets so pissed that he fouls him repeatedly, ending the fight in a brutal finish, literally punching Sawamura out of the ring in one of the goriest panels I've ever seen. This man hits the back of his head on the floor from a 3 to 5 foot drop. 3 to 5 feet straight on the back of his head. And by the way, Sawamura still wins by DQ. This man cannot stop winning. He is the Japanese champion despite his best attempts to get in his own way at every possible turn. This is when he wakes up in the hospital. Despite the beating, he has his health intact and a national boxing title, as well as 2 men who genuinely care and pray for his success. The natural expectation of someone this talented would be simple: defend the belt a couple times and then move on to the world, looking to challenge the world champ and becoming a legend regardless of what happens. But put yourself in Sawamura's shoes for a second. What would you be thinking in this moment? I asked you this question in the intro, and with the added context, hopefully your answer has changed. I believe the thought running through Sawamura's head in this moment is, now what? He gets on his bike, speeds recklessly down the highway, and crashes into that truck. His last words were, "It's so bright." I've seen some debate over what this panel means, but I believe the answer is clear. Sawamura lived in darkness his whole life. He defined himself as the man who perseveres through abuse, betrayal, and abandonment. But now he's at the peak, and he has to deal with the hardest truth of them all. His life is not that bad. His identity as this underground rebel, it can't survive with him being the champion. What is he rebelling against when he's this successful, this talented, and this widely recognized? The whole arena was chanting his name by the end of the Mashiba fight. He sees the same view that Ippo saw when he beat Sendo in Season 1 finale. And it's too bright. Someone who's lived his life in darkness can't possibly exist here. It's blinding, so he leaves. In the only way he knows how. He destroys his body, destroys his career, and nearly ends his life. But his good luck hasn't quite run out just yet. Now, at this point, Sendo notes his pitiful state and asks Ippo not to see him in this condition. He tells him to remember him as the strong Sawamura from last night, because strength is ultimately the only virtue Sawamura ever saw, and that's when he was at his strongest, so that's what people should remember. And it reads like a tragedy, but what if it isn't? Sawamura wakes up from the coma a changed man. The next time we see him, he's honestly more relaxed and more laid back. He's quipping back and forth with Sendo. In the past, he punched Kumi for simply touching his bike. This time, he doesn't even get upset when Sendo wrecks it. He's now a trainer, and Sendo comments that Sawamura finally has a goal. I think this goal gives Sawamura a sense of purpose because it's something he can honestly see himself doing. I think being a boxing champion was too bright for him. It was too much. All the attention, all the glamour, all the money. A man like Sawamura didn't know what to do with all that, and it clearly got to his head. But as a trainer, Sawamura can honestly explore his love of boxing, study the sweet science, and pass it on. For the first time in his life, Sawamura isn't fighting for himself. He's studying the game, holding mitts, giving advice to help his students succeed, to help someone else find success. That's crazy. He can honestly even commentate Miyata versus Randy Boy Jr. without any trace of ego. He's really into boxing now, as a sport rather than a way to hurt people. He can honestly praise Miyata, someone who in many ways represents what he could have been. A boy with his own abandonment issues with his mother, a very similar fighting style built around counters, and an insane amount of talent at a young age. And it doesn't even stop there. He later watches Mashiba versus Rosario and genuinely roots for Mashiba, the man who he just had that crazy death match with. The old Sawamura would have hated watching either of them succeed, but the new Sawamura can look at both Miyata and Mashiba not as rivals or threats or enemies, but as boxers. That says everything about how much he's grown. People often say that hurt people, and that's true, but it's not a hard rule. Sawamura found a way to channel his pain into something positive. He took the damage from that crash more as a humbling than another injustice or another oppression inflicted upon him. And that's so beautiful. So I'd like to extend the title of this video. Success did in fact break Ryuhei Sawamura, but failure built him back up. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a blessed day.